everybody, how you do? Oh, okay, just gonna shut that. Hey everybody, how you doing? Teching here. Just give me a second. I'll get to the Bleach discussion in a moment after I carefully walk over to my desk area without tripping over everything. Okay, that didn't work out too well, but all right, this is some type of book-like object, and what's going on over here? I don't know, but all right. Wait, this is something over here. I think we're good. Okay, so, hey everybody, how you doing? Today's video is gonna be all about Gin Ichimaru and his Zanpakuto Shinso. Can I open my eyes now? All right, I'm gonna be on the other side of the room. Oh no, we're good. Okay, we're here. Nothing important fell down. All right, awesome. Okay, well this part fell off, but you know, that's what you get when you buy your wakazashis at a county fair. Just fell off again, screw it. You know, I was gonna throw this thing away, because literally every part of it is, like, wobbly and broken, but, you know, I knew there was gonna be one more Gin video, one more piece of unfinished business I had to use this for, so I'm keeping it around for a reason, okay? But anyway, yeah. Gin Ichimaru, former captain of Squad 3, really cool character, kind of a fan favorite, honestly, which is funny, because if you read Kubo's writings, he actually intended Gin, like, he drew him as, like, the creepiest guy he could imagine, and it really perplexed Kubo when he found out, like, Gin had a really large, like, female fan base. Like, we love you, Gin-sama! Like, alright, I drew him as, like, the biggest creeper I could imagine, but okay. We'll roll with that, I guess. People like Gin. Very multifaceted character, has a lot of layers to him. You know, at first glance, you just look at, like, oh, this is the villain. You know, like easily. Like, the first time you see him walking toward Ichigo and Jidanbo when they're lifting up the gate, like, oh, this guy's the villain of the arc. Like, that's what he is, right? He's like a snake, and that's another way that Kubo drew him to, like, reminiscent of a snake. But then throughout the series, you find out, oh yeah, no, he is a traitor, but then at the very end of the Fate Karakura arc, it's like, no, he, like, just pretended to be a traitor to gain the trust of Aizen, and he told nobody else about this plan, not even the head captain, because he took it on himself to try to eliminate Aizen for the sake of Rangiku. So yeah, a lot of cool things revolving around Gin, as well as his Zanpakuto Shinso, which literally translates out to magic extendy sword. So no, it actually means God Spear, and I love the duality of the name scheme between his Shikai and its Bankai. It's great. So his Shikai is God Spear, and that's pretty cool, right? Like, oh, I have a Spear of the Gods! I mean, it's a wakizashi that can extend into, like, a, you know, a longer sword, but it's a spear, right? That's cool, right? I mean, who isn't a supreme badass that has a spear? Except for that guy. But beyond that, everybody that has a spear, pretty cool. Luffy from One Piece has a spear, technically. But anyway, his Bankai, though, is Kameshini no Yari, which translates out to God-killing spear. I love that. God Spear, God-killing spear. That's kind of like a joke sort of deal, but I like the naming scheme, right? Now, here's the cool thing about his sword. You might think it's rather basic, right? You've already explained it, Matt. It's a magic extendy sword. It's a short sword at first, but when he releases his sword, he can extend it longer and then retract it, and that's all he can do. Now, yes, basically that is all he can do. Now, there is another ability that's kind of buried in the depths of his Bankai, Kameshini no Yari. There's another thing he can do with it. But for the most part, yeah, that's pretty much all his sword can do. His Shikai extends his sword about 100 swords lengths, and then his Bankai can extend it, you know, several kilometers. Maybe. Beyond the speed of sound. Maybe. And the reason I'm not sure is because Gin is a master of deception. This is an aspect of a character that I love to see, and I don't get to see it too often, not just in Bleach, but in a lot of anime and manga. Okay, so let me explain how this works. It's a common trope in pretty much all anime and manga that the characters have to, like, explain their abilities to the opponents. Now, this doesn't happen every single time. In fact, a lot of manga implement a narrator to do just that. So the two characters can fight while the narrator explains to us, the readers or the viewers, what's actually going on with their abilities. That's one way you can do it, but I guess we've certainly seen that before. Like, you know, I'm gonna show you my power to summon electricity. Now, allow me to explain to you exactly how this power works before I use it, or while I'm using it, right? But the thing is, in any real situation, if you had some sort of a hidden ability like that, and you had to explain your ability to your opponent, which you wouldn't in an actual fight, you would just fight, but why would you ever tell the truth? Imagine for a moment you have some kind of superpower. It could be anything. I used the electricity example from earlier, so let's just do that. Let's just say I have the ability to, charge electricity in my hand and, shock people, kind of like Kaminari's quirk from My Hero Academia. Okay, I have that ability, and I'm fighting against somebody, and, if I was going to talk about my ability to my opponent, why the hell would I explain exactly how it works? Wouldn't I lie and be like, oh yeah, I could summon 5 million volts in my hand, and if you even get within 2 meters of me, I can electrocute you and you would die immediately. I could say that. It might not be true, but I could say it to kind of put my opponent on edge, get like a psychological advantage over the battlefield, okay? That's what Gin does. It's so cool because I don't get to see this all too often. Usually, it's like two characters fight, and they just fight, and they don't explain their abilities, or they explain their abilities like actually how it works. Now, I've seen this before, where characters will lie about their powers to other people, because that's the smart thing to do. That's what everybody should do. It's like, okay, if I have this ability, why would I explain to you how it worked exactly? That doesn't make any sense. Alright, I'll explain it to you, but I'll lie about a few things, or I'll fudge some of the facts a little bit to make it way more terrifying than it really is, just to gain an advantage there, right? So the opponent is like, oh, with my example earlier, like, I'm not really sure he could summon 15 million volts or whatever number I said, and I don't think he could kill me within 2 meters, but I'm gonna keep my distance from him. Even if I couldn't do that, it's just like, okay, I've planted the seed of deceit in your brain. Okay, cool. So that's why I don't know. When Gin first reveals his Bankai to Ichigo, he explains he can extend it like 13 kilometers, and it can extend beyond the speed of sound, like extend and retract beyond the speed of sound, which is like 100 miles per second or something. It's like 500 times beyond the speed of sound. But we don't know if that's actually the case. Now, it doesn't matter if it is or not, because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day if it can extend 13 kilometers or 12 kilometers or even 4 kilometers or whatever. In his Bankai, it extends long enough to slice an entire town in half. Alright, at that point, do you really need to have an exact measurement? When your sword is long enough to slice, like, skyscrapers and buildings, from a fair distance away, an entire town just collapsing, it doesn't, okay, 13 kilometers or 1 kilometer. Either way, it's a really long freaking sword, right? And also, the exact speed, like the way that he psychs Ichigo out is he, like, claps his hands and he's like, my sword can extend about 500 times the speed it took that clap to reach your ears. Now, once again, it doesn't have to be 500 times the speed of sound, or 300 times the speed of sound, or even the speed of sound. His sword extends so redonkulously fast that, when he was fighting Ichigo, he used that technique, Buto, which means dance step. So he placed his Shinso like this, and, like, it extended toward Ichigo. Ichigo dodged it, and while Ichigo was dodging the sword, while he was, like, moving his head out of the way, boom, the sword was already retracted back into the Wakizashi form. So it doesn't have to be the speed of sound or beyond the speed of sound. It's fast enough that a human being cannot register, how fast it extends and contracts. Or it can retract without the human eye realizing it. So it doesn't have to be those exact numbers. It's still really freaking long and really freaking fast. That's what you need to know about it, okay? Now, when it's in his Shikai, he explained that it can extend 100 swords lengths, exactly. And that's why when he was a little kid, he was given the nickname 100 Slasher or 100 Sheather or something like that. So I like to think that's accurate because people actually called him that. But once again, like, he could be lying. It's like, it doesn't actually extend 100 swords lengths. It only extends 91 swords lengths. Okay, whatever. It's long. It's long. Get out of his range. He's a long-range fighter, okay? So, I love the deceit aspect of it. I love the naming scheme of his ability. Now, and as for the release command, that's something that's interesting. So, any fan of the English dub and reading the English manga and all that stuff probably knows about this. For whatever reason, and it probably is just, matching the lip flaps or whatever, because that's always an issue. People always question, how come in the dub they change this line to this line instead of keeping it like that? Most of the time, it's because of the lip flaps, like Japanese is different from English, so sometimes you have to omit words, sometimes you have to add other stuff in that might have to change the way it originally intended in Japanese. You have to kind of make the best of both worlds. Sometimes they can usually get it approximate, but other times they have to really get creative. And other times, if you're 4Kids Entertainment, they'll just add in lame-ass puns and hope that covers the basis, right? But for whatever reason, in the English version of Bleach, they consistently change Shinso's release command, okay? In the Japanese, it's just shoot to kill. It's Iko Rose. in the Japanese, or Ikorosu, which just means, you know, shooting the person until, you know, okay, fair enough, right? Like, you're dead to rights, you know, shoot to kill, fine. But in the English, there is at least 5 different translations they use of that. Impale them, slay them, pierce his flesh, that's my favorite, shoot to kill, and shoot him dead. They use that one in a lot of the video games. I'm replaying a Bleach game that I loved when I was, you know, probably like, you know, my teenage years, like probably like 16, 17 when it came out. Bleach Dark Souls for the DS, really great game. And in that game, Gin's like, shoot him dead, Shinso. And that's actually kind of approximate because he talks with a very interesting kind of dialect in the original Japanese. It's like a kind of like an accent sort of thing, and it's like an affectation you wouldn't really notice if it's in English, but they try to translate it with those like contractions, like shoot 'em, you know, shoot 'em dead, Shinso, or how you doing, eyes, you know, something like that. But yeah, it's just, I just find it funny that they keep changing the translation, but it's Ikorose, which just means shoot 'em dead in the or shoot to kill, I guess I should say, in the Japanese. So there's that. Now, as for his Bankai, because I talked about the secret ability, I don't know if this is Kubo throwing this in there like, oh no, we're not just going to make it a magic extendy sword, because that's a little bit too boring. I mean, it's really useful in combat, it really is. Just because it's basic doesn't mean it's not useful, because imagine this. Gin is going around wearing his captain outfit, you know, he has his Haori, he's got his Shihakusho, it's kind of baggy clothing, right? And his sword is pretty damn small. So he could easily be walking down the street, concealing his Shinso amongst all of his clothing, and somebody could attack him from, you know, the side or behind, and he could just have his sword like this and just extend. In fact, he's done this before. Just extend right through his clothing, using his clothing as a cover, and just shing, and then you just get attacked that way. So, yeah, his range is immense, and you really don't know the exact angle where the sword is coming from. If you can keep an eye on the tip of Shinso's blade, you know, wherever he angles it, sure, you can have a general idea, but keep in mind, it's going to extend really fast. So, when Shinso, you basically think of his blade as the barrel of a gun, and wherever he aims it, you better have your own sword up to block it, or you better be dodging before he, like, points it directly at you, because it's just like, shing, shing! And then that's it. So really fast blade. Now, as for the secret ability of his Bankai, Kameshini no Yari. So, he explains that when the sword is extending, and I'm not sure if this is in the Shikai state or only in Bankai, I'm assuming it's only in Bankai, the sword will transform into dust for, like, the fraction of a second. Don't exactly know how much of a fraction of a second. If Gin gave us an exact number, he would probably be lying about it, but very, very small amount of time, the blade goes from a physical blade to just dust, or like a, you know, like a semi-solid kind of material, right? You know, and that dust is actually like a very potent, like, neurotoxin, like a poison, right? So, under normal circumstances, he doesn't do anything with it. He'll just extend his sword and then slice up a town or attack somebody with it. The blade will turn from, like, dust to solid form very quickly, but he won't do anything with it. But this is how you can activate the true power of Kameshini no Yari. When you go to run somebody through with the blade, you can leave part of that dust inside of the body. So when the blade retracts, there's like a tiny little sliver missing from the middle of the blade where the dust got left inside of the person's body, and then even a tiny minute amount of that, just like a little tiny nick of the sword, can be triggered by the release command, kill him, or just kill Kameshini no Yari. And that releases the poison or the neurotoxin, and it is extremely fast acting. It's like this like uber version of the flesh-eating virus, and when it activates, it's just like, and you're missing like an entire, like a hole is just eaten out of your flesh. Proportional, I would assume, to the amount of blade that's left inside of you, you know? So, with just a tiny little sliver left inside of Aizen's heart, it resulted in this amount of damage. So, can you imagine if he, like, left the entire, like, he doesn't have to even lead the entire sword. Like, just slightly more than the amount he left in Aizen would have probably been enough to disintegrate his entire body immediately, which makes me wonder, like, why, maybe he didn't want Aizen to catch on, because that was the whole thing. Like, he was, like, allying with Aizen for 100 years, trying to figure out his weaknesses, and he didn't want Aizen to learn his abilities, so he's like, oh yes, I have the ability to extend my sword, Aizen. See, there's nothing different about that. You can plainly see that's what I'm doing, and not realizing the true facet of it, so he's never really used it except on Aizen. But yeah, very, very powerful ability. If it was anybody but Aizen, it would have worked. And actually, you know what the sad thing is? Gein's plan really did work out the way he intended it to. It's just Aizen's power was so broken and nonsensical it didn't matter. Gein's plan was like, alright, I'm gonna stab him through with Shinso, Kamishini no Yari, use the kill ability, reduce his entire body just to like goo as it's eaten out by my virus, take the Hogyoku, escape, call it a day. And he succeeded in all of that. His timing was perfect. Everything was great. You know, Aizen was surprised. He didn't know what was coming. His body got eaten out. The Hogyoku, you know, Gein grabbed it and he managed to get away. Except it's like, oh no, even though the Hogyoku's not inside me anymore, I have achieved a mental bond with it spiritually. So I can call it back to me and turn into a butterfly whenever I desire now. So, sorry Gein, sucks to be you! I'm afraid to, like, throw the middle finger up, so sucks to be you! Very fancy way of saying you fool. So, yeah, that's how that went, and that was not a great end to Gein. I mean, it was a good end in the sense that we found out the kind of person he really was this whole time. He was a traitor, but not to the Shinigami. He was a traitor to Aizen. His whole plan was like, I need to gain his trust, and I can't tell a soul about this to anybody. I can't tell my plan to anyone. I can't tell it to Rangiku. I can't tell it to Izuru. I can't tell it to any of the other Shinigami, even the head captain. I have to do this whole thing by myself, because that is the only way I'm gonna be sure that I'm gonna be able to succeed, because Aizen is so perceptive and he's aware of everything around him, and even Aizen kind of had an idea. Like, when you enlist somebody that was a traitor to somebody else, you kind of are always thinking, like, you're gonna be, I already know you're a traitor to them, so what stops you from being a traitor to me? So I'm sure Aizen was already aware. He's like, I'm sitting around waiting for you to attack me, so Aizen was aware, but just the, you know, we find out about Gein, and he was, like, trying to get something back, the thing that was stolen from Rangiku, because we have that flashback with Aizen's men stealing some Ryatsu, or, you know, from Rangiku when she was a little kid, to use as fuel for Aizen's Hogyoku, and then Gein saw that, and he's like, I'm gonna figure out a way to take that guy down someday. And his plan worked, it's just, he didn't read the script. He didn't have access to Kubo's notes when he was reading it, unfortunately. But anyway, that's pretty much everything for Gein's sword. Sorry, Gein, that you died, but I liked your ability. Pretty basic thing on the surface, but you managed to make it really cool. In terms of actual name techniques, there wasn't very many of them. There was the Buto I mentioned, and then there was also Buto Ranging, which was just the same thing, except it's like a rapid-fire version, so he just holds the blade up to his chest to kind of lock it in place, and then it's just like like super fast, like a Gatling gun, Gatling sword, Gatling magical extending sword. But yeah, that's basically all it was there. He could have combined it with Kido. That's something we don't get to see too often, is Shinigami combining those swords with Kido. Like Shuhei did it once against Ion, and I think Shunsui used it against Lille. He made that Kido blade. So, yeah, we don't get to see that too often, though, because you can, like, charge the elements with Kido. Like, I have an electric Kido, a fire Kido, a water Kido, a wind Kido. Merge that with your swords. Izuru did it once, too, when he was fighting against the bird dude. He was, like, spinning it around and making Tenron. He did that. But beyond that, we don't get to see it too often. So, yeah, freaking Gein, add some electricity to your sword or something. Do something cool. We could have seen it. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. And now, of course, moving on to the next part of the... It's not Toshiro. I'm going to shuffle these. But moving on to the next discussion in the Zanpakuto Captain series. Are you enjoying this so far? I'm enjoying it so far. I like it. I like it. You know, Gein, there's a lot more to talk about his character rather than his sword. So I feel like this might be one of the shorter episodes, but I'll go back to Gein mode here as I draw the card. Alright, so who's next? I'm gonna say, before I draw a card, I'm gonna say it's, Byakuya? Let's talk about Senbou and Zakura next. Yeah, that'll be a decent sized video. Alright. Wait, I got two. Hold on. Alright. I can't see it. Which one is it? Is it gonna be cool? It's gonna be Unohana's Minazuki! Okay! This is a fun one, because we just have no idea what the Bankai does. Like, it's like, Bankai, Minazuki, and then she dies, and then we find out nothing about it. But, you know, it's a good one to, you know, hypothesize, you know, come up with some theories about, like, was it blood-based? Was it acid-based? Was it the powers of the devil's toilet made manifest? I don't know, but we'll talk about it next time. Retsu Unohana's, or Yachiru Unohana's ability, Minazuki. Alright, have a great day, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out! Shoot 'em dead. Kamishini no Yari.